Taylor, and I am a survivor of domestic violence and sexual assault. Today I'm going to be speaking about some of my experiences and of disclosing those and the responses I've received. Also, my experiences of others disclosing to me and my insights about how to best support someone who is experiencing family violence. I have been sexually assaulted, socially, psychologically, emotionally, financially, and physically abused at the hands of my perpetrators. When I was 22, a man that I knew chose to rape me in my own bed while I slept after I had said no. The next morning, I had to try to keep myself together and composed while I got my young children ready for the day. Once I had taken my eldest to school, I reached out to an organisation that I felt safe asking for help. I think they had the best of intentions to support me, but all they were able to do was put me on the phone with 1-800-RESPECT, which is known as a specialised support service for sexual assault. But it wasn't what I needed in that moment. I did not need or want a professional on the phone, and I did not want to be left alone, tucked away, out of sight. Also, at this time, a support worker from another organisation was informed of what had happened to me. She connected with a local specialised support service to meet us at the hospital for medical support and forensic examination. She also arranged to place my younger child in his daycare so she could take me to the hospital. While I recognised that what she was doing was what she thought was right and necessary, to me, I lost some more of my autonomy, as I wasn't in a place at that moment to make decisions about what I wanted to do next and when. I hadn't had enough time to process what had happened, let alone what next. Feeling pressured to move through next steps as quickly as possible and tick all the boxes on some checklist while I'm mentally not ready, took away a lot of what little control I still had. The examination room made me feel even more trapped with no control whilst they talked to me about my experience and the next steps. During this process, I was told there would have to be a mandatory reporting to Child Safety Services because my young baby was present when I was assaulted. I realised that this was part of their job, but having this conversation when I was deeply traumatised and feeling like all power had been taken away from me was not okay. There was absolutely going to be a better time to bring that conversation up other than when I'm already extremely vulnerable and at a point where I feel I have no power and control over my life. In addition to this experience, I've also been a victim of family violence. My perpetrator would use financial abuse by spending my money on drugs and selling mine and my children's belongings. He would torture me by sleep depriving me for days at a time. He used abuse towards my children's pets that traumatised my children. He would control all aspects of my day, from when I got up, if I'd been allowed to sleep, to if I could take my children with me when I left the house, to how much I was allowed to eat and drink throughout the day. The fear my children and I lived with every day was excruciating. It was mentally and emotionally exhausting. When I disclosed what was happening in my home, it was not planned. I didn't go out that day knowing I was going to admit to anyone that we were in danger. I left my home that morning feeling scared, trying to get my eldest to school and return before my perpetrator woke up. At the last minute, I also took my younger child with me. I didn't have a plan, but just drove to the school. I got to my children's school, and whilst walking my eldest in, I realised we'd forgotten his swim gear, but I assured him I would sort something out and not to worry. When I walked into his classroom, I broke down instead, telling the teaching staff that I had forgotten my son's swim gear, but I couldn't go and get it because home wasn't safe. That was how I disclosed, over some forgotten swim gear. The school staff were wonderfully supportive and comforting to me. They did everything they could to support my children and myself in that moment. The staff was so respectful in offering a private space to sit and talk without ushering me away to hide me. I was reassured in that moment me and my boys were safe, and it was entirely up to me what happened next, and they gave me a few options like, would I like to call anyone? Do I want to involve the police? Did I want them to make that call for me? These were all my choices, and I could make them in my own time. I did choose to call the police and have the school staff speak on the phone for me. I have repressed the memories of some of this time, but I do remember reporting to the police. The police told me that what I was experiencing didn't meet their definition of a relationship. They didn't even mention the words family violence. They said there wasn't anything they could do to help me besides go home with me and remove him from my house if he was still there. They didn't issue a police family violence order, but left it up to me to file for a restraining order with the court and wait till our court date, while still leaving me and my children and myself in danger. I didn't tell a lot of people initially. I was embarrassed, and I held a lot of shame and blamed myself for letting an abuser into my home with my children. I was also fearful of retribution for speaking up. I did reach out to my sister for a place to stay. She and her husband welcomed us to their home and told us to come as soon as we were ready and offered full support. And when we got there, my sister met me at the car and just held me and comforted me. I realised I'd left some of our belongings behind, and she helped me access local supports and vouchers, which was so helpful and comforting for me to hear and helped the sheer overwhelm I had in that moment. The response I had from my mother was a totally different story. She chose to blame and treat me like I chose to be in danger. She came to my children's school and created a scene which left me feeling degraded. She continues to blame and shame me and use my trauma as a way to humiliate or control me. Other people have also responded in a way that is victim blaming. Once I was sharing my experience with someone, and after telling them what I had been through, they asked me how I could let myself get into a situation like that, as I seemed like a smart person. Victim blaming has a huge impact on victim survivors when they speak out. It can shut them down and stop them from telling their story or reaching out for help. It is vital that no victim survivor is ever to be blamed. The responsibility needs to stay with the perpetrator. As a victim survivor of multiple forms of sexual and family violence, who has received various negative and positive responses from friends, family, community and the justice system, I have some important insights that may help you when you are supporting someone who may disclose family or sexual violence, and what victim survivors do and don't need when they are disclosing. If someone trusts you enough to disclose the trauma they are or have experienced, or is brave enough and ready to speak openly about their experiences, respecting that trust and believing, accepting and validating their experience is key. What you say in the first response is so important. Be empathetic, not emotional. Also, avoid judgment and blame. Be supportive. Tell them that the violence and abuse is not okay. Centre what they need in that moment. Place the blame with the perpetrator's choice to use violence, but do avoid casting criticism on them as a person. When someone chooses to disclose to you, it can be confronting, traumatising and even re-traumatising for you. It is still crucial for you to take a deep breath and maintain your composure. If you find it is too emotional, overwhelming, or you are even wanting to counsel or share your own experiences, don't be afraid to, in that moment, reach out for extra help from other people, a boss or specialist support who can provide accurate and appropriate responses and resources. Be open and honest with the victim survivor disclosing to you about your capacity, skills and knowledge to support them. Take the time to listen to everything the victim survivor wants to disclose to you. Validate their experience and reaffirm that violence in all its forms is not okay, is never their fault, and there is always help. Thank the victim survivor for trusting you enough to share this information with you. It is an honour when someone shares with you. Give the victim survivor their power and autonomy back in this moment as well. Don't push your own agenda onto them. Don't ask why they don't or didn't just leave. Don't probe with question after question to find out every detail. That's not what we need in these moments. It's not helpful for us when we are this vulnerable. Giving a victim survivor the control over what next is important. They don't always want practical help, professional help, or for you to fix the problem. Sometimes they just want you to know and be aware or understand that this is occurring or has occurred. They may just want to share and be validated. In conclusion, the new National Plan to End Family Violence Against Women and Children was released a few weeks ago. This plan outlines what is needed to end family violence in one generation. If we are going to address family violence in Australia, everyone needs to do their bit. Everyone here today can make a difference, and that difference can start with listening to and supporting victim survivors when they speak out. Thank you.
What amazing story.